Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and today I have a bit of an announcement. Stygian Fox is currently running a Kickstarter for the 7th edition reprinting of the classic Call of Cthulhu collection, New Tales from the Miskatonic Valley. The collection was previously released some time ago by Miskatonic River Press, which has since got under, but Stygian Fox picked up the rights to re-release it. The table of contents includes such names as Keith Herbert, Kevin Ross, Christopher Smith Adair, and Oscar Rios, which is a great lineup. And Stygian Fox is going to be giving the book a facelift, new art, new maps, nice handouts, and they're also adding a new adventure to the lineup, and they've asked me to write it. So, while I have published novels and a lot of short stories, this is going to be my first published RPG scenario, which is a huge honor. So when Stephanie at Stygian Fox first reached out to me about it, her requirements were that it be set in Innsmouth, it had to be canon, it had to be tension horror more than gore horror, and I had up to 8,000 words in order to play with it. Once I picked my jaw up off the floor, because this was a huge honor for me, I told her to give me a couple of days before I accepted it or not. I imagine she thought that I was probably going to jump at the opportunity, and as much as I would love to have jumped at it, I wasn't able to jump on it right away for a couple of reasons. First, I didn't have a scenario idea yet, and I didn't want to just say yes and then spend the next few months trying to come up with something and not be able to come up with something until my back was up against a deadline and I slapped together something that no one was going to be happy with. So I wanted to make sure that I had a scenario in mind before I said yes. Next, Innsmouth is actually a very intimidating place to set the adventure. It's an extremely well-known location. Lovecraft's story, The Shadow over Innsmouth, is my very favorite of all the Lovecraft stories. There's also a movie version called Dagon, and while that movie is arguably terrible, I also love it. I've seen it a couple times. Arkham Studios is working on their own version for the movie that I am really looking forward to. There's also a video game, Dark Corners of the Earth, which, of course, I've played. And the Call of Cthulhu tabletop game has several adventures that are already set there, including the Escape from Innsmouth guidebook, which is phenomenal. But sadly, neither of these two books are available anymore from Chaosium, which is terribly disappointing. But in order to keep it canon, I needed to look at those books and see what they had and make sure that everything that I put in my adventure actually lines up with what's in those previously published things, such as what's the name of the sheriff and that sort of deal. Stuff that wasn't actually in the original short story by Lovecraft but has entered the canon of the role-playing game. So before I gave Stephanie with Stygian Fox a yes, I needed to come up with something that can fit into this extensive canon of Innsmouth, but isn't just some regurgitation of some adventure or story that's been done before. It needed to be something that was very different and something that people would be excited to play. Now, certain aspects of Innsmouth are unavoidable, such as Deep Ones and the Esoteric Order of Dagon, landmarks such as the Gilman House and the Marsh Refinery. These are things that a lot of players, including myself, would love to see and love to interact with because we've read the stories and we've seen the movies, we've played the games. So I wanted to put them in there, but the trick is using them in new and exciting ways. So my first goal, outside of the stipulations that I had for Stygian Fox, as far as word count and everything like that, was that all of the familiar aspects of Innsmouth certainly exist within the adventure, but I didn't want the adventure to be about fighting Deep Ones or even the Order of Dagon. So, of course, these aspects, they are in town, which means they're possible adversaries, just kind of depending on what the investigators do throughout the course of the adventure, but it isn't about fighting them. So I figured it might be fun if instead the adventure was about working with them. So I outlined the adventure where a gang of on-the-run outlaws ends up hiding in Innsmouth, and the investigator's job is to actually find them as part of a manhunt. The Innsmouth authorities, of course, are going to be working with the outsiders in order to get these people out of town, and nosy investigators might discover a little bit more than they were looking for while they're there. So I wrote up a pitch and an outline, and I sent those to Stephanie, and she loved it. So once that was set up, I went ahead and accepted it, and now I'm going to be in this great collection. Now, some might ask if I'm a little bit nervous with this being my scenario writing debut. Not at all. Cool as a cucumber. Now, the adventure has now been written, and I'm extremely happy with it. The working title, don't know if this will be the final title or not, is A Mother's Love. So the next step comes the playtest phase, where we find any holes and hopefully plug them and make it a little bit better. And then between that and editing, either by editing by myself or after I've turned it into Stygian Fox, who knows how much of the draft that I have now is even going to resemble the final draft that hits print. Hopefully that final draft that hits print will be different, because hopefully it'll be a whole lot better than anything that I already have. Now, the Kickstarter has already funded. Stygian Fox has come through on other Kickstarters before, including the gorgeous Hudson and Brand that I recently did a box opening for. So there are still 3 weeks to go on it, so you should jump on board now. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait for the regular release, and you're not going to have access to some of the other benefit that the Kickstarter gives. Links below, of course. That is it for now, so until next time, have a great day.